Operating out of this position of security is really operating from a position of fear, right? You're operating based on you're afraid of losing something. You're operating from a position of fear, right? Like the thought of what if this doesn't work, where I certainly can't say that I always thought this way, but I really over time learned to really realize that I shifted my thinking.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, everyone. So, as always, I have another incredible guest for another episode of the Gentleman's SHF Talk with Alex Ramirez. And before I introduce him, I just want to give a big shout out to all of you guys who have been leaving comments, reviews, likes on all of the major podcasting platforms, and especially to you who have been watching on YouTube and leaving comments and leaving likes. The ones of you who take the time to do this are the ones who make all the difference. And to you, I want to say thank you. So today I have Todd Brown. He's considered the number one authority on engineering profitable customer acquisitions. And he is a ninja when it comes to direct response marketing. So I'm excited to talk to Todd, and I'm excited to have you, man. Thank you very much for being here, and you're welcome.
Yeah, man, my pleasure, dude. I was looking forward to this and so excited to dig in. I think that what you're doing, the topic that you're talking about is an important one. I think, it's good stuff, man. And so I'm glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Thanks. So look, the first thing that I do with my guest is make them feel a little bit uncomfortable by telling them to walk us through your entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
Woo. Wow. 75 seconds or less. And so, all right, let me see. You cut me off at 75 seconds. All right. And so, cool. It goes back 2 decades. So 20 years ago, I got a direct mail piece in the mail that introduced me for the first time to direct response marketing. I didn't know anything about what direct response was, the difference between direct response and advertising. At the time, I was working for a health club company. I started implementing what it is that I was learning in this program in the health club company. My department that I was responsible for skyrocketed to a little bit over $3 million a year. I became the poster child in this big health club company. Then I got bit by the bug to take what it is that I was doing in the health clubs and share it with other people. I put everything into a published training program many moons ago for massage therapists to help them grow their practice, get more clients. That took off. Eventually, that little side business was bringing me just as much income as my main job. That's when I decided to leave that job, go full time into the training and coaching world, direct response. I then expanded from massage therapists to chiropractors to dentists. And then about 6 years ago, I started working with really savvy marketers and savvy entrepreneurs, helping them scale from $1 million to 5 to 10 and up.
Cool. Awesome, man. So let's see. At the beginning of your story, it sounds like you started to work at a company. You had a job, a marketing job or something like that.
No, so I work for a company that owns several health clubs in New Jersey. So I'm from New Jersey, now in South Florida. I started with an $8 an hour job at this health club company. I was a terrible student growing up. I was like a misfit rebel. I was always very small. And so I kind of felt like insecure. And so my way of dealing with that was to constantly like act out. I never took books home because I thought that it would make me look nerdy. And so I didn't want to take books home. And so a terrible student. When I barely graduated high school, I couldn't get into any college. So I had to go to community school. It took me 3 years at community school to get a 2-year degree. Finally, I was was able to go to college. Took me another 3 years to get a degree. I got a degree in clinical nutrition, of all things. So healthy eating and whatnot. So when I graduated from college, the only job that I can get was at this up and coming health club company in New Jersey. And they wanted me to do like help their members with nutrition. I started out at $8 an hour doing that. That was the only job that I could get. And then over the next handful of years, many years, I grew from that $8 an hour position into a VP at the company. And that's when I was overseeing this department of 70 some odd people and 8 managers and 2 directors and me. And we were bringing in $3 million. And I was responsible for generating revenue internally in the clubs through this department. And that's when I was exposed to direct response, started learning it, started using it in the clubs, saw the results. And then I got bit by the bug. I said, let me put these skills that I'm using in the health club to the test on my own in some side business, not knowing what that would become, not even with the intention of growing this side business, because the job was great. I was VP. I was making a lot of money at a young age. And, one thing led to another, had some family issues. Like my wife lost both her mom and dad in an 8-month period. And then we had two kids, 2 daughters, 17 months apart. And like my whole family had moved from New Jersey to Florida. And so my wife and I looked at each other and we were like, we've got nobody here. I got this side gig now that's bringing in good money. And so now it's time to leave the job, move to Florida and go full-time in my own business. And that was many moons ago. And the rest is history.
Man, from everything that you said, I want to go into what you said at the beginning, which was you felt small and insignificant. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that? The reason I'm asking is because I felt like growing up, I had this feeling of inadequacy, of like not being good enough. Now, now that I've done the work, now I know why. But I had this feeling of not good enough and insignificant, like feeling insignificant. And that's one of the reasons I've been counting my calories since I was like 12 years old, right? And why for the major part of my life I've been like, I had a 6-pack and I've been in good shape. But yeah, like I just want to know, like, how did that transfer into for you?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, look, dude, first of all, I'm 5'5", and so I'm short, been short my whole life. When I went into when I went into high school, I was 78 pounds. And so I'm this tiny kid, right? Like short and 78 pounds. For whatever crazy reason, I decided to wrestle in high school, weighing in, right? I didn't have to strip down. Everybody else is in their underwear, getting on the scale to make weight, cutting weight, all that. I'm in my jacket, like weighing in because I'm so far under the lowest weight class. And I got pummeled and I hated it. I always felt extremely just insecure because I was the tiniest one in school. And so I was the last one to get picked for sporting things. And so after 2 years of that, even in my sophomore year in high school, I was like 90 pounds or something like that. I gained a little bit of weight and I was still extremely tiny, still under the lowest weight class. And so after my sophomore year, I decided that I wanted to start to weight train. My parents bought me some like sand weights and I started to weight train and I took to the weight training. And so in like the first year of weight training, I gained something like 18 pounds of muscle. Like it was nuts. My body just responded to this weight training and it felt good because now the other kids started to notice, like, my arms were popping out of the shirt and it felt good. And so I decided that I was going to take off my junior year of wrestling and I was just going to keep weightlifting. Well, one thing led to another. My body continued to respond. And that's what led me into competitive bodybuilding. And so from the time that I was a teenager into my early 20s, I would say about 23, maybe 24, I was a competitive bodybuilder. And so on stage, traveling out of state, on the national level. And, it's a crazy sport. It's a terrible sport on a lot of levels, but I loved it to this day. I still absolutely love it. Of course, I'm a lot older, and so I don't have nearly the physique that I once did, but I learned a lot of valuable lessons, man, from that experience. Number one, the thing that I loved about bodybuilding was that it was an individual sport. And so it wasn't like I didn't have to worry about team, like I didn't have to worry about anybody else not being committed, not being motivated, not being pumped to hit it. It was all on me. My destiny, my success was fully within my control. It was all about what it is that I was willing to do every day in terms of, 6 meals a day, weighing out my food for every meal, eating based on the clock, no matter what was going on, packing my food in the morning and taking it with me, right? Weight training, 5 days a week, doing 45 minutes of cardio, at night, 5 days a week, right? And getting ready. And so it taught me discipline. It taught me commitment. It also taught me patience, which I think is so valuable in life and business, especially. And it really taught me the value of being able to put your head down and do the work every day and not pick your head up until you reach the destination that you want to be at. And so I was able to carry that with me into business. Even when I got that first job, right? Like I was like, I started out as $8 and I remember looking around. I remember meeting a guy who later on became a good friend. He's still a friend of mine to this day. And he was a bigwig in the company. And he was like a young dude making a lot of money. And I said, yep, one day I'm going to be like that dude. And so I paid attention to what it is that he did and how he carried himself. And I learned as much as I possibly could. I sat in on his meetings, even when I didn't have to. And in the end, right, he was coming to me for advice. And so, right, it taught me, and I was still going to him for advice as well, in all fairness, but it taught me the value, man, of of what can happen when you're willing to do the work and do it day in and day out and be committed to it and be patient and not constantly rethink your strategy and not constantly reanalyze. Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? But choose a plan, put your head down, do the work, and the results will follow if you're willing to be committed.
That's amazing, man. I'm very glad that I asked. And like one of the reasons that I ask is because, that like as an entrepreneur, there's like, trauma. That's the right word. Trauma that you have to like work through, right, in order for you to be able to get to that next level. But as well, all of those negative, like that you see as negative things that happen when you were earlier in your life, they become like blessings for you, right? That built your character. So before you got into this, you got your degree with clinical nutrition and you got this job. Before that, you had already gotten some experience to build your character, right? And there's this like cycle that entrepreneurs go through, that they have to get skills, they have to get character, they have to work on their beliefs and mindsets. And then it's like a cycle that you have to go through when at every level, right? Because business is a game, and this game has levels, and at every level you must level up, and that includes like you leveling up your skills, your character, and your mindset. So you had already built character before jumping into this job that you had, that you were paying $8 per hour, and then you became VP. So you already had a character that you built as a bodybuilder, right? The consistency, the discipline, the doing the work again and again and again. I went to Disneyland this weekend, and me and my mother were actually talking about, man, I really ate chicken and rice for 4 years, my entire high school. I literally ate chicken and rice the entire 4 years of high school, man. It was crazy. And we were talking about that. So I know what it takes, right? And so that character transferred into like when you went into the business world. I can see how like you were able to like be successful. So you started to get a taste for direct marketing, and like then what happened? Did everything happen really fast or no?
No, I mean, and so let me say this also, I think, look, man, I think it wasn't until years later that what I would say the most valuable aspects of my character today, and I believe that we're all still a work in progress, myself included, but it really wasn't until years later that I feel like, whether it's through maturity, through experience, or through a combination of things, that I was able to develop what I believe are the most valuable aspects of my character today, which we certainly can talk about. But as it relates to direct response, no. So it didn't happen quickly. It wasn't an overnight success story. I mean, look, I started, I was learning something brand new that I had never been exposed to before. And like anything else, I believe that learning direct response, learning, long form copy, all the things related to direct response, it's a skill. It's not a talent. And in other words, it's learnable. So anybody can learn it. And just like any other skill, it takes time. It takes time to learn it, takes time to implement, practice, improve, right? Implement, practice, improve, and get to a point where it's now working, just like any other skill. So for me, I would say that, the business, that first side business didn't start to take off for maybe like 12 months. So it took me 12 months, and any money that so first of all, I started with $800. I just said, I just want to allocate $800 to this business, no more. And I never had to put another dime of my own money into the business. I started this business, like that business, which led to where I'm at today, was started with $800. I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anything about the internet or like technology. I knew how to send an email. And then what I did for the first 12 months was while I was working full time, and I was committed to that full-time job. Like the owner of that company, my boss, my employer deserved my best. Mm-hmm. And so I gave them my best. And so when I was working on my side business, I did it early in the morning. I did it late at night. I did it on the weekends, and I made sure that it never interfered with my ability to deliver the best that I had to offer to my employer, because that's what they deserved. And for the first year, I just reinvested every dime that I made back into the business, in learning, in growth, in development, in testing and advertising. So I never took a dime of income out of that business for the first 12 months. It was only after it started to take off that I would start to take some money out and enjoy it, just to enjoy the fruits of my labor. So no, I wouldn't say that it happened quickly. But look, man, most good things like in life don't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. Despite what social media says, man, most good things don't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes commitment. If it was easy and fast, everybody would do it, but it's not.
Cool. Yeah, for sure, man. 100%. So what were you doing with your side business? You were implementing all the marketing stuff that you were learning with other entrepreneurs, or like?
No. So so originally when I was in the health club company, I mentioned I got this direct mail piece. This direct mail piece was offering a direct response training program for fitness professionals. And so I figured there was something that I could learn, even though we were in a health club and it was a little bit of a different environment. And so I got this massive home study course on direct response for fitness professionals, started diving in, learning as much as I possibly could. I even called the creator of the program and said, who did you learn from? And he talked about Dan Kennedy and Gary Halbert. And then I started studying those guys. And then I started adapting what it is that I was learning from him for fitness professionals for the health club setting. And then, right. And while I was implementing stuff there, a lot of it was trial and error, because I had to adapt it. And then after a handful of months, it clicked in the health club setting. And then my department just started to take off thanks to the things that I was implementing, tweaking and whatnot. And then, like I said, after it took off and now I was the poster child, I was showing up to these meetings with the other executives in the company. And my department was the shining star now. It was the crown, man, of all the departments. That's when, for whatever reason, I just said to myself, like, man, I'd love to see if I can use this outside of the health club setting. And so I then decided, let me take everything that I learned and adapted in the health clubs and see if I could adapt it for massage therapists. The only reason why I picked massage therapists was because we worked with massage therapists. Number one, I didn't want to do anything with health club owners because I felt like it would be a conflict of interest with my employer. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to do that. So I said, we work with massage therapists. So let me see if I could put together a package for massage therapists. And then I created the marketing to sell that to massage therapists and did all the research on that marketplace. And then, started selling it to massage therapists. And it took me, like I said, about 12 months for it to build up and gain traction. But that was the path, man. And it was quite a journey, to say the least.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. And I want to ask a bunch of stuff around marketing, because I'm actually right now studying Dan Kennedy. right? And actually the vital skills that I want to focus on this year is marketing and leadership, right? That's what I want to be focusing on learning this year. So every book, every course, anything that I put my hands on or that I invest time on is about marketing and leadership. So like I definitely want to dive a little bit more into like the marketing, but like now I want to ask, so when did you become a husband and a father, man? And like when did you started to go that route of like like becoming a husband and a father?
Yeah. So
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Real quick, do you want to know how I've been using my podcast to build a multi-million-dollar network with over 100, 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs, reach hundreds of my ideal clients with my message, coaching, service, and podcast, get invited to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months alone, throw my own events, and have over 100 successful entrepreneurs being willing to speak at my events, become a millionaire in 1 year, get mentored by multimillionaires, and achieve goals that I thought were going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year, and ultimately get unstuck and make quantum leaps of progress in my business and life with less than 1 hour of work just by being myself. If you answered yes to any of those, I just want to invite you to a free training showing you how I've been able to build a multi-million-dollar network that is helping me achieve bigger income goals faster with only 1 hour of speaking and just being myself. To be honest, I thought I was going to be a multi-millionaire, speak on stages, throw my own events, and live a successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and impact in 10 years from now. That seemed so far away, but my podcast has been able to help me do that in less than 6 months. I'm actually doing all of that this year at the age of 21 with my podcast. I'm reaching thousands of people with my message, my service, my podcast, my coaching. I've gotten booked to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months. And on these stages, I'm going to be getting in front of hundreds of my ideal clients, making roughly around 15 to 30K plus per event. Not only that, I have a network of over 100 high-level, multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs who have all agreed to speak at my events. Getting clients is a problem of the past. I've gotten the opportunities to learn from billionaires, and I'm collapsing decades of time, and I'm literally achieving what I thought was going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year. All of this because I use podcasting as a networking tool, and I leveraged a rare concept called the cloak track. And I want the exact same thing for you. Just imagine where you could be in 1 year from now if you get this free training right now. That is why I'm inviting you to this training. On this short training, you're going to learn how a small group of purpose-driven entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, course creators, and speakers have combined podcasting with this rare concept called the cloak track to build a multi-million-dollar network, reach thousands of their ideal clients with their message, books, courses, coaching, make an extra $118,800, get booked on 10 stages, and build a successful network of entrepreneurs who speak on their stage, all of this in under 6 months. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps to make this work. Step number 1, alignment. Getting clear on who you want to be, what you want to do, your goals, your purpose, and aligning all of this with building your podcast and your ideal podcast guest. Step number 2, leveraging the cloak track to find your ideal podcast guest and never running out of them. Step number 3, leveraging the cloak track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4, the content machine. The content machine is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. And I'm going to show you all of those 4 steps. The link to access this free training is in the description of this video. Click on it and go watch this training right now so that you can learn how you can too build a multi-million-dollar network that helps you achieve bigger goals faster and with less effort. Note, this training is only available to 18 people, so act right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
Well, I got married in 2000. I think I was 28 at the time. And so I got married in 2000. In 2001, and I had my wife. We had been dating for a long time, and so she actually saw me go through the bodybuilding stuff and get the job in college, and so she was there with me throughout the whole ride. We got married, and then a year later, we had, in 2001, we had our first daughter, and then 17 months later, we had our second daughter. And so today, like I said, both my daughters are in college. 17 months apart. And that's the backbone. I would say my family, my wife and daughters and my faith are the backbone of every decision that I make.
Family and faith. Cool. So like you became a husband and a father in the midst of building your business and all of that. So when did that happen? So that happened in 2000. You were 28. So did that happen after your marketing business took off or before?
So I believe that I had both my kids were, I believe I just had my second daughter. And that's when I decided, like, I want to do something on the side. I want to see if I can use my skills to build a little side business. I also was kind of starting to think bigger because I'm like, I really, the biggest thing for me, man, when what really drove me to business was not the money, because I was making great money even as a young dude in the health club company, but was autonomy, the ability to get up when I want, right, eat lunch when I want, take a vacation when I want, a day off when I want, because I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted to see them grow up. I didn't want to miss dance recitals or volleyball, things that they would go on to do later on. And so the thing that drove me was I did not want to have to answer to a boss. I did not want to have to show up to work every day at 9 o'clock. I did not want to be told, right, really anything. And so that was the major driver for me. And so I remember when I was working on that first program, that first package for massage therapists, I remember on the weekends, like looking out and seeing, my wife with my two, like my toddler daughter, my infant, second daughter, and saying to myself, like, yeah, I'm doing this now. I'm going to sacrifice now so that I don't have to sacrifice long-term my time with them. And so I did what I had to do, and I worked hours, and I was terrified of the whole process because I had never created a program before. But the result of what I was after, the autonomy, the freedom, was more important to me, more of a driver to me than was the fear of not knowing what I'm doing, really, that, like not, embarking on things that I didn't know, that I had never experienced before, launching my own business and all that. And yeah, man. And so I did it in the heat of things, man, working full time, two kids, under 2 years old. Like, yeah, man.
That's awesome, man. And it's crazy because, most people, when they have kids, the last thing they want is some kind of risk, right? To take some kind of risk. What they want is security, stability, because now they have kids, right? So they have this excuse. No, I'm doing this because of my kids. And like you did this because of your kids, right? So like it's a different perspective, which I think it's really
because
cool.
Here's the reality, man. The reality is that, and it took me a long time to really come to grips with this, but the reality is that the security that people feel with a job is just an illusion, because any day the boss can make a decision to cut your role, to let you go, to sell the company, to do anything. And so the idea that a job is less risky than starting your own business is really just an illusion. Right? It's really not. It's not any. It seems less risky, right? It seems like there's less risk, but there's not, because you're not in control. I wanted to be in control. I wanted to call my own shots.
Yeah. And it's really cool that you mentioned, that's like waking up from the matrix. It's an illusion. Like the thinking that a job is going to give you more security is an illusion. And another thing is that with a job, you're inherently saying that you're being paid less than what you're worth, right? So like automatically for a job to work, you have to be paid less than what you're actually worth, than the value that you bring to the table. So like no matter how valuable you are at a job, you will always be paid less than your worth. So that's another thing that I just wanted to add to that. So not only are you not secure, because your security depends upon the employer, right? His decisions, his ability to run the company and all of that. And the second thing is that by staying at that job and not going for your dreams and like the freedom that you want and all of that, not taking charge, you're always going to be paid less than what you're worth, right? Yeah. So yeah, man. And
the other thing, Alex, that I just want to mention too is that, even operating out of this position of security is really operating from a position of fear, right? You're operating based on you're afraid of losing something. You're operating from a position of fear, right? Like the thought of what if this doesn't work, where I certainly can't say that I always thought this way, but I really over time learned to really realize that I shifted my thinking from, instead of thinking, what if this doesn't work, to what if this does work? Right. In other words, right. Not looking at the potential for failure, but looking at the potential for success. And so when somebody says, I'm staying at this job because of security, right, they're really just operating from a position of fear. And I never wanted to operate from a position of fear. I wanted to operate from a position of opportunity. And so, and I also believe, man, for what it's worth, that, look, man, there are a lot of people out there that are wildly successful that aren't that bright. Like, let's just be real, meaning they're not, there are a lot of people that are extremely successful financially, in business, whatever, professionally, and they're not any smarter than you or I. And so I always believe that if others could do it, then I could do it. I could figure it out. Like I could figure it out. I always knew, thanks to my experience with bodybuilding, that I was willing to do the work. Like, in other words, if it's a matter of, right, like doing the work, right, like, okay, I'm certainly willing to do the work. And I believe that it could be figured out. If other people have done it, and there are many, many, many examples of others doing it, then I certainly could as well. And so I wasn't going to allow fear of failure to stop me from going down that path, because folks that live from that position have to live with that fear forever.
Yeah. Fear, right? Fear of trying and finding out that you weren't good enough and failing, fear of failing, fear of success, fear of what people might think, right? And you had fear. You just said that right now. Like
Sure.
you like the whole process was, you were scared, but your courage, your desire for a better life, your desire for freedom was higher than the fear, right? And that's where courage comes in. So like courage is not being afraid. Courage is just
right,
being willing to, having more, how can I say this?
It's man, it's simple, and you're so spot on. What you're saying right now, I hope everybody, man, that is listening or watching this, really hears what it is that you're saying. The reality is this, man, that, the fear in life is common, and it's normal. And you're going to experience fear throughout your life, even as you achieve a greater and greater success, even as you achieve new financial levels and you acquire wealth. Don't ever think that fear is going to disappear. The fears may change and evolve, right? As a parent, like, all the money in the world doesn't take away the fear that you have of kids going out and, God forbid, something happen to your kids when they get behind the wheel and they drive, and right. And so fear is a natural part of life. As it relates to business, the reality is that it's not about the absence of fear. It's about having the courage to step out in spite of fear, right? And so, like, I once heard the example of, firemen that run into a burning building. To think that they're not afraid or that they have no fear is ridiculous, right? If somebody wasn't afraid, that means they're crazy, right? It's not that they're crazy, it's that they're courageous, because they're willing to act in spite of the fear. They're willing to recognize, I'm afraid, but I want the result more. Therefore, I'm going to act in spite of being afraid.
Yeah. 100%, man. And, man, I end my podcast episodes with 5 questions, which I want to jump into now. I just want to have want to have a lot of time to actually dive deep into them. Instead of asking about marketing, which, people could go and get your E5 method book, which I just did. Instead of asking around marketing here, instead of doing that, I want to ask about like mindset, which I think it's, very powerful, especially for, married entrepreneurs with kids. So yeah, man, the first question that I always ask at the end of my episodes is about, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could go back and talk to him, like not change things or or anything like that, just give him some advice. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self if you could go back in time and do that?
Advice about just life, or advice about business?
Let's do both. Yeah.
Let's do life. So, without getting too deep, I would say that, one of the most important things for folks to understand, especially young folks, is you need a standard in your life to operate by. In other words, when it comes to decisions, you have to have a barometer that your life is governed by. And the barometer, or the standard that you choose for what you live your life by, you have to choose wisely. And what I mean by that is that there are people that will say, like, my barometer is, does it feel good? Let's just say, right? Does it feel good? Somebody else's barometer might be, does it make me happy? Do I enjoy, does it make me happy? Well, I think that there are a lot of barometers, or a lot of standards that that people can choose to live their life by, that can very easily become slippery slopes. And right, if the standard by which something is okay to do is whether it feels good to you, well, that's a slippery slope, because some things that you're going to have to do on your quest to become successful, to become a gentleman, let's say, don't always feel good. The other thing too is that, what do you then say to the criminal out there who's like, yeah, man, I love jacking people, I love robbing people, feels good to me. Well, what do you say? How do you say to that? How do you look at something and say that's wrong? Right? If you set for yourself this standard of, I live my life based on what feels good, or I live my life based on what other people say is okay. Like, hey, man, if the consensus of the community says it's okay, then I'm okay with it. If that's the standard by which you live your life, that's also a slippery slope, because not everything that the masses say is okay and acceptable is really okay and acceptable. At one point, like, without going down a crazy, rabbit hole, at one point, man, like, slavery was legal. It was accepted. It was the norm. The people that were against slavery were viewed as the rebels, right? And so if your standard by which you live your life, man, is what is acceptable to the masses, well, then does that make slavery right just because the masses say that it's right? There are a lot of things in life that become difficult to really to stand firm as a man, as a gentleman, if you don't have a standard by which you live your life, a standard that you go to that is really unmovable. And so, right, like, I have a standard in my life, which is my faith. And right, so it's not about what I feel. It's not about what other people feel. It's not about what I like. It's not about what you like, right? There is a standard by which I live my life that helps me to determine right and wrong, objectively, what's right and wrong. And I think that I wish I understood that when I was a lot younger, man.
So cool. Yeah, I like it. I like, like the whole subject that you're talking about, having a standard, a barometer. But like, how do you set one? How do you set a standard for yourself?
Well, that's a loaded question, man, for me, because what I would say is, it's, like, look, man, what I would say, my standard is my faith. And so, and I don't want this to turn into, a sermon, but I think that, without going down this crazy rabbit hole, that's, when, like, look, I would say that people need to have a standard that's not this malleable, movable thing where it's based on how I feel, because I can tell you for sure that how you feel at 20 is going to be very different than how you feel at 30, which is going to be different than how you feel at 40. And so if you live your life based on how you feel, you're going to look back when you're 40 at things that you did when you were 20 and 30 and say, man, what was I thinking? Just like, as well, again, there are things that shift with society. And so for me, like I said, that my barometer, my standard is my faith. And therefore it's objective, it's unchanging. And so you ask me why I think something is right and why I think something is wrong, I can tell you that.
Okay, cool. So like, could your barometer be your values?
Certainly. Sure.
Cool.
Sure.
So for
You just
example,
have to recognize that, sure, the thing that you've got to, you just want to be, you've got to recognize that, like, you're a young dude, your values are going to evolve.
might change. Yeah.
They are going to change, right? Like, look, you know that, I mean, look, when you go from being single to being a husband, right? Values change. When you become a parent, your values really change. What you value, what becomes of utmost importance shifts. And so what you just have to be, my belief, and again, you take it with a grain of salt, but my belief is that when you've got a barometer, when you've got a standard that you live by that is, has the potential to be consistently changing, it's very tough, man, to make, to make decisions.
Cool. And that's why your barometer is your faith. Cool.
Correct.
I like it. Nice. And what about business, man? What advice would you give your 20-year-old self in business?
So in business, man, and this is tough because there's a lot of advice that I would give, but I think usable, like something that should be valuable for everybody listening. That's, let's say, considering going into business for themselves, exploring the idea, which I think that entrepreneurship is the single most exciting and smartest path for somebody that is interested in financial freedom. I love the entrepreneurial journey. I would say that the single most important thing that you can do is choose your marketplace wisely. You don't want to start, you want to find a marketplace that is big enough to support what it is that you want, is filled with people that are buyers. They have money. They're willing to spend the money. They are accessible. They are already buying products. It's all about the marketplace. Then I would find or create the product that I'm going to sell to those people. And so from a business perspective, I've seen more people, struggle because they started with the wrong marketplace. They started with a small marketplace, a marketplace of people that don't have money, a marketplace of people that don't really want the solution or the product that they created. And right, like, it becomes, even for a skilled entrepreneur and a skilled marketer, it could become a nightmare experience. And so I would tell everybody that the single most valuable thing is to start in the, pick the right marketplace. And just to put a bow tie on this. So, right, I very quickly, after I built up this business, marketing and selling to massage therapists, I very quickly realized that massage therapists don't have a whole lot of money. There's very few massage therapists that are making $1 million a year, or $500,000 a year, right? Most of them, right, if they crack six figures, they're head over heels thrilled. And so I said to myself, well, why don't I market to chiropractors closely tied to massage therapists? Chiropractors make a lot more money, right? The patient, an average patient is worth multiples to a chiropractor of what the average client is worth to a massage therapist. And so I was able to sell almost the same thing to chiropractors at 2 to 3 times the price point that I was selling to massage therapists. It's the difference between the marketplace. And if I was really smart, I probably would have went over to cosmetic surgeons who make multiples of what a chiropractor makes, whose patients are worth multiples, right? And then I would have been able to charge 2, 3, 4, 5 times what I was charging chiropractors for cosmetic surgeons, to teach them ultimately the same exact thing, which is growing their practice, getting more patients, that sort of thing. And so it's all about marketplace selection.
That's great, man. So ultimately, the lesson is that the market always wins, right? If it's the market and as a skilled entrepreneur, the market wins. If it's the market and a good offer, the market wins. So the market always wins. Awesome, man. Yeah, I think that's really good advice because, in the beginning, when you're an entrepreneur, like you didn't even know like what to offer or like what you're doing. You just want to make some money. So like going in with this mindset of knowing that the market is the most important and that you have to pick, a growing market, a big market enough that will support you, people who have a pain that they're willing to pay money for and that you can find them easily. Yeah, cool. Yep. I love it. Awesome. So cool. The second question, man, is around mindset. So what is like one mindset shift that you've made that you can share with us that you feel has had a lot of impact in like where you are now?
So I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're looking for, but I always feel it's important to share when this kind of question comes up on interviews or podcasts or whatnot. And that is, man, I think the single most, and this was a mindset thing for me. I think it was a shift in the way that I viewed what it meant to be a man and a gentleman. You know, a lot of times, like a lot of younger guys, when I was younger, like I used to have this alpha, like this alpha mentality, thinking that a man was always, this intimidating, especially as I got into bodybuilding and was growing and all that. But the reality is, I think the single most valuable characteristic, personality trait that an individual can have, and it's played a role in my personal life as well as my business life, is humility. Is humility, man. Like is never forget where you come from. Right. Like I always say, man, I'm, really at the end of the day, I still talk about, I'm a kid from New Jersey who struggled in school, was a terrible student, barely graduated. And I've just never forgotten that, like, I don't have a lot of talent. I can't do a whole lot of things. Like I'm not a handy guy. I can't really cook well. Like I don't play any musical instruments. And so humility is something that I think everybody should, you can work on it. You can develop it. You can choose to exhibit humility. It's a choice, and it's extremely attractive, right? People are attracted to humility, and you really can't go wrong by putting the emphasis on others, man. Like my job, I almost see it as, and it could be called a calling, whatever you want. When I interact with people, it's not just a business thing, right? So it's not just with clients and prospective clients and and students in our tribe. It's just in general, man. I feel like my job is to edify the other person, man. I want to leave people feeling better about themselves. I don't want to leave them feeling better about me or impressed with me. I want them to walk away and feel like, wow, man, like that was a great, great interaction. That was a great conversation. Like, this dude was real. He was honest. He was authentic, and he was down to earth. He didn't, and so I always say, man, number one, doesn't matter how much money you make. There are always other people out there that have made more than you. The other thing is, right, like I always, I say, no matter how big we've gotten, popular we've gotten, I always say we're not curing cancer. Like, and so recognize, like, we're not curing cancer, man. Don't over, I like to say to folks, like, don't buy into your own PR. And so humility, man, recognize that, like, humility is extremely attractive. You could practice it and choose it every day.
Yeah. Great, man. Actually, my value that I always keep in mind is humility, respect, and wisdom. Right. And then it's also motivate, inspire, and bless, in that order, because when you respect people, you give them their place. And then, that naturally leads you to be humble, right? So you're respectful, humble. And when you do those two, when you're respectful and when you humble, you listen, you give people their place. You're not, you don't want to prove yourself. You don't want to validate yourself. You don't want to get anyone's acceptance, because you're respectful and humble, and that makes you wise, right? Yeah. And then motivate, inspire, and bless. So you motivate by being an example. So, like, for example, like, let's say that you're shredded and you're jacked. Well, you're going to be a motivation. But if you are an asshole and you're like, I'm jacked and you're not, you're fat, or I'm rich, you're poor, whatever, that doesn't inspire anyone. So in order for you to motivate and inspire, you must come from a place of love, respect, and humility. So that's how you motivate, you inspire, and then you bless people, because when you do those two, you motivate and inspire them. You like inspire them to take action, and you bless them, because from that point on, they're not going to be the same person.
Yeah, well said, man. I think, like, look, dude, being, to me, at least, part of being a gentleman is being a good human being. And being a good human being, right, is like treat people with respect, treat people with honor. Like, just because they have less money than you, just because they're not as, physically fit as you, just because they're younger than you, they're not as smart as you, whatever, treat everybody with respect, man. Like, treat everybody with respect. I give people respect until they give me a reason not to. If they give me a reason not to, then I remove myself from that interaction in that situation. But I'm going to treat everybody with the respect and honor that I believe that they deserve. And I think that that's a big part of what it means to be a gentleman.
Cool. Awesome, man. Great. I love it. So, man, the third question is around clarity. right? So like, what do you do to be clear in your life, clear about who you are, what you want, where you're going? What do you do to stay clear?
Yeah, I think probably the single most valuable thing is that I didn't start doing until I was really midway through my entrepreneurial journey. But that is, alone time away from the computer with like a yellow legal pad and a pen, often for me sitting outside and just thinking and asking myself, a variety of different questions. There's a great book. I forget the name of the book, but it's by Keith Cunningham. Keith Cunningham, his most recent book, it's a few years old, but he covers this idea of thinking time. And I think that for me, even prior to reading that book, is just extremely helpful. Where, what most people do, even the ones that are working on their personal development, is they're constantly learning. And so they're reading, they're watching videos, they're listening to audiobooks, podcasts, and they're consuming. But what they're not doing is processing that information, meaning they're not asking themselves, what does this mean to me? And what do I think is going well? And what do I think is not going well? And why don't I think it's going well? And right, am I using my time wisely? And what are the most important things to me today? And are I and taking one of those questions and just spending that time, whether it's a half hour, just thinking about that, and then jotting down any notes that come to you about that. And so I think one of the most important things that you can do to help get and maintain clarity is give yourself the space and time to think, and no more input. Process the input. For what it's worth, as a side note, and it applies to both what we're talking about now, clarity, and really business success, is that I think that most people associate learning, the input of information, which I'm a huge fan of. You can see the library in the back, right? That's not a green screen. That's the library in the back. Most people, associate learning, reading, studying as growth, as progress. But the reality is that when it comes to business, it is not about the input, it's about the output. And for most entrepreneurs, I would say less input, more output. In other words, if you've read a book on copy, on marketing, now pivot and focus on doing something with that. Take action. Right. So what a lot of people do is they'll read one book and then they'll read another book and then they'll get a course, and they're constantly in this perpetual consumption mode, but nothing happens from consumption. The only time things happen is through output. So it's not input, it's output. For most, when it comes to business, less input, more output. As it relates to personal development and clarity, you shouldn't associate that input with progress. The progress is when you get clear on what it is that you learned, and you think about, how does this apply to me? And then you apply it to you. And so I would say nothing more than, if you took 3 days a week, just a half hour each session, to do nothing but think, to ask yourself one question, a different question in each of those 3 times a week, and you make notes, and ultimately at the end, you decide if there's anything that you're going to do with what it is that you just came to realize or got clarity on, or a decision that you made, what you're going to do with that would change things radically for most people in terms of clarity.
Cool. Awesome. So thinking time, unplugging yourself and giving yourself time to process, just like at the gym, when you grow is when you rest, right? So that, and then instead of just learning, doing, right? Doing more, yes. Implementing more. Cool. Awesome, man. Yeah. And I think, for like at the beginning, I read a lot of books when I first started on this journey of, like personal development stuff. I read a lot of books. I would read everything that would come, that would cross paths with. And it was good, for mindset and for learning how to speak and stuff, but I didn't implement anything, right? So right now, like I'm reading one book, and then I all I do is like implement. Cool, man. So let's see. Do you have time? Do you have anywhere that you have to be in 1 minute?
I do, but you can fire the 2 questions away, and let's see if we can nail them very quick.
Awesome. So what is the next question was, what is one habit that has contributed to your success?
One habit that has contributed to my success is working out every day. I put it on my calendar, same time every day. Nobody on my team is allowed to schedule anything during that time. They know, don't bother me during that time. For me, that is 9 a.m. So I get up early and I work I work alone. Usually early in the morning, I'm doing writing. I'm doing something kind of solo, writing copy, working on a campaign, that sort of thing. And then at 9 o'clock, I walk over to the fitness facility in my neighborhood. It's actually a 5-minute walk from my house to the fitness facility. So that's my warm up, right? So warm up, go in, hit it, boom, come home, shower, shake. And then I'm in official, kind of office time where then I'm accessible, and it's not movable. It is immovable. I don't care what is going on in the business. I don't care. Everybody knows that time is untouchable. And that has really allowed me to continue to get that refreshing that I need from fitness. For people that don't exercise, even if you start slow and you there's something about, man, getting your heart rate up, sweating, getting away from the desk, stopping your thinking about business and your goals and getting in the zone, that when you come out of that zone, man, you're different. And so for me, without question, working out, every day.
Awesome. I love it. The last question is about tracking, man, tracking and measuring in your life and in your business.
Yeah. So that's great. So the business is a lot deeper. We've got, in my business, I'll give you the rundown very quickly. In the business, we've got different scorecards. We've got a scorecard for the company with I believe it's our 6 major goals for the year. And then we work in 90-day sprints. So basically we work quarter to quarter. So then there are these goals that we need to hit for the quarter. They are tracked every day. They're reported on every week in a leadership meeting every Monday at noon. After my workout, I have a leadership meeting where we review the scorecard to see if we're on track. And then there's this scorecard for specific departments in the company. And so very simple, very straightforward as it relates to personal. And so every year in December, I spend a day setting my goals for the following year. Usually I try to pick between 6, 7 at the most. And I try to have goals that are in the different core areas of my life. So I want to make sure that they're not all slanted to one category, like financial or business. And so usually I have a goal related to the things that are important to me, like a goal, if you will, as a husband, a goal as a father, a goal with the business, a goal with my finances, a goal with health and fitness. I'll have a goal with learning, wisdom. So reading a certain number of books a year. And then what I do is I break it down into quarters. So I'll take those goals and then I'll assign this. I want to achieve this by this quarter, this by this quarter, this by this quarter. And I try to make sure that I've got these goals spread out so that I'm not trying to achieve everything by the 4th quarter or everything by the 3rd quarter of the year. And then it really just becomes a very simple system that I learned years ago and that I use to this day. It's taking those, breaking them down into monthly milestones, breaking them down into weekly achievements. And then every day when I schedule or determine my to-do list for the next day, I look at what has to be completed for the week. Right. And so I'm looking at what has to be completed to the week, what has to be completed. Okay, what am I going to do tomorrow? I'm going to do these 5 things. I always determine the 3 things that I have to get done by the end of the day. Everything else is ancillary, and that's it. And so it's just this simple checks and balances of this is where I want to be by the end of the year. this is when I'm going to achieve those things, but by the quarter, this is what I have to do or accomplish each month, right? These are the milestones that I've got to hit each week, right? And this is what I'm going to do every day. And then I take those things that I need to do every day and I put them on my calendar. And so the things that I need to do, if there's an hour and a half of writing that I need to do or something like that, that's part of, right, in order to complete the first chapter of a book, right, which is going to complete the book by the third quarter of the year. Well, then I know that, all right, tomorrow I want to write this, I want to work on this for an hour and a half. Where am I going to do it? I'm going to do it from 1 to 2:30, 2:30. I'm going to take lunch or whatnot. And so that's it for me. And so it's very simple, just taking the big things, breaking them down, and just making sure that I'm on pace.
Cool. Awesome, man. Thank you very much. And man, I have your links and everything, for that free book, E5 method and all that. But is there anything that you would like for the audience to know, like in case like they love you, which, I did. I love where you're all about. Especially the marketing stuff and all of that. So where can people find more of you, man?
They can go check me out on Instagram. Todd Brown, TODDBROWN. You could also go to, if you want to learn more about the marketing stuff, we've got a Facebook group, like a free group at Todd Brown Marketing. So it's just Todd Brown on Instagram, Todd Brown Marketing on Facebook. And yeah, man, those are the two best spots.
Well, man, thank you very much for being here with me and having this amazing conversation, and really appreciate you. And I'll see you later, man. You got it. I love what you're doing, man. Like, I think that what you're doing is really valuable, man, because I think that, look, man, more, if we can have more gentlemen, more men that really understand what it means to be a man, to be a gentleman, like, man, the world would be such a better place. I really believe that. And so kudos to you, man, for taking this mission on. And kudos for the work that you're doing, man. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here with you, brother. Thank you, man. See you later. Got it. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms